Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today we have an interesting issue that has raised the worldwide community's interest. Prepare to be surprised as we plunge into the surprising turn of events surrounding Afghanistan's largest mega-canal projects that stunned China and America. Afghanistan is really developing, but more innovation will help out. Let's embark on this interesting journey together. As we uncover the amazing story of Afghanistan's Canal mega projects, we will discover the fascinating considerations that inspired these major projects as we dig into the fascinating world of the makers. Join us as we examine and know if there is more to the story than joining us on this journey. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned to discover the reality behind this. Afghanistan-China relations have been mainly favorable throughout history, with commercial links extending back to at least the Han period and the lucrative Silk Road. Both nations now have embassies in Beijing and Kabul respectively in the two countries. China has a long history of involvement in Central Asia and will play a significant role in molding Afghanistan's future. Afghanistan now poses a mix of opportunities and challenges for China. Terrorism, extreme Islam, and drug trafficking pose a danger to China's domestic security, while Afghanistan's abundant natural riches and strategic location between Central and South Asia make it a potentially attractive target for Chinese investment. Although competing for regional dominance has led to mutual distrust, the two nations have a strategic interest in maintaining governments, combating terrorism, and fostering economic growth in Central Asia, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Between October and December 2001, China did not take part in US and NATO efforts to depose the Taliban. Despite China's inherent interest in the country's long-term security, the Chinese leadership is firm that it'll neither make any obligations to ISAF or send combat troops to Afghanistan. Senior PLA commanders, on the other hand, recently suggested that the Chinese military may potentially back a UN-mandated peacekeeping force in Afghanistan. The flag rank officers emphasized that a Chinese peacekeeping deployment to Afghanistan would be consistent with China's historical commitments to UN operations, which have not involved combat soldiers. Engineers, including demining specialists, medical units, and civilian police, were mentioned as the sorts of security aid deployments that the Chinese military might support. Since the establishment of the modern nation of Afghanistan in 1709, relations have been variously positive or tense, but in recent history have been more friendly, including during the majority of the 20th century, with China extending economic aid and multi-million-dollar loans to develop Afghanistan during the early Cold War period. After the Sino-Soviet divide and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979, the USSR installed pro-Soviet and anti-Chinese administrations in Afghanistan. This partnership was momentarily shattered. However, following the withdrawal of Soviet soldiers and the ensuing détente of Soviet and Russian-Chinese relations, China-Afghan relations have improved dramatically in the 21st century. Since the United States invaded Afghanistan, China's political involvement has been limited, but trade relations have continued, with China remaining Afghanistan's largest trading partner and China providing millions of dollars in aid throughout the war. China's influence and diplomatic presence in Afghanistan has grown over the years, and China may be able to assist negotiate peace in the war-torn country. China, like all other countries as of 2023, does not recognize the re-established Islamic Emirate after the Taliban reclaimed control of the country in 2021. Taliban authorities have begun publicizing a new canal under development in Afghanistan's parched north. A new YouTube video shows sparkling diggers rushing over sand dunes and employees from many ethnic groups toiling together. According to the Islamist regime, 5,500 workers are working on the project around the clock, utilizing almost 3,300 pieces of machinery. The Kosh Tepe Canal, when finished, will transport water from the Amadaria River for agriculture. The river, once known as the Oxus, begins in Afghanistan and Tajikistan, flows in Uzbekistan, and is one of Central Asia's longest. The Taliban anticipates that the initiative will convert 550,000 hectares of desert into much-needed cropland. The canal is a significant test of the Taliban's capacity to rule in the midst of much horrible news from Afghanistan, including the imminent destitution of nearly its entire 40 million inhabitants. Many people doubt we have the capacity to implement this project. National Development Corporation CEO Abdul Rahman Atash stated, "We will demonstrate that Afghanistan can stand up its economy and carry out national projects on its own." The Taliban are building the Kosh Tepe Canal in northern Afghanistan to divert water from the Amadaria. The canal is anticipated to be 285 kilometers long. The canal's construction is expected to begin in March 2022. Uzbekistan is concerned that the canal would have a negative impact on its agriculture. By diverting water from the Amadaria, the canal is projected to exacerbate the Aral Sea disaster. Nonetheless, in 2023, Uzbek authorities met with Taliban representatives to discuss the Kosh Tepe Canal. The plan is supposed to transform 550,000 hectares of desert into agriculture, according to the Taliban. The Taliban has prioritized the construction of the Kosh Tepe Canal. Independent specialists and engineers have expressed doubt about the project, claiming that the Taliban lacks the know-how to finish the canal successfully, and that financing the project would be difficult because no foreign donor is ready to finance it. Afghanistan has not signed any regional or international treaties governing the use of the region's transboundary waterways. The waters of the Amadaria were divided among the four Central Asian republics of Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Kyrgyzstan, but Afghanistan was left out. The Taliban have claimed that the country has a right to use the Amadaria's waters. Water sharing on the Amadaria. Although prior Amadaria treaties had been established between the Soviet Union and the Kabul administration dating back to 1946, these accords never explicitly addressed the subject of water sharing on the Amadaria. Later accords, such as the post-Soviet Almaty Agreement, never included Afghanistan as a signatory in any water use discussions in the basin. This provided significant leeway for the Soviet Union, and later the independent Central Asian states of Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan to develop the basin's water resources, resulting in the construction of the massive Karakum Canal, from which Turkmenistan draws the majority of its water resources. Although Tajikistan has made several attempts to address this issue, the subject of memorandums of understanding between it and the former Islamic Republic of Afghanistan never extended to water sharing, nor did it ever include as signatories any downstream states in the basin whose water resources are far more threatened by a diversion of water into Afghanistan than Tajikistan's are. Without a clear understanding in Kabul or in any Central Asian nation of Afghanistan's rights to the Amadaria's waters, the region's governments can only rely on precedent. The current agreement governing the basin, the Almaty Agreement, is based on water allocation divisions that were originally envisioned in the Soviet-era Protocol 566, which only assumed that Afghanistan would divert 2.1 billion cubic meters, far less than the potential 10 billion that the Kosh Tepe Canal could divert. The Uzbek delegation's pledges of collaboration with regard to international principles are not a conciliatory statement. They provide a strong message that the Kosh Tepe Canal is impossible under the existing regulatory system managing the Amadaria. The scarcity crisis. The diversion of water from the Amadaria gravely jeopardizes Uzbekistan's stability. Aside from the threat to the country's water-dependent cotton economy, which it has spent enormous resources to link to global markets, the aridification of the Aral Sea has already exacted a severe toll on the country. For one thing, it has made Uzbek inhabitants sicker, particularly in the Karakalpakstan area. As a result of the population's exposure to major pollutants, population growth in the autonomous territory has been decreased and infant mortality, TB, and bronchitis have increased. A diminution in the flow of the Amadaria would not only worsen these problems, but would also imperil Karakalpakstan's primary employer. It isn't clear whether Tashkent is willing to suffer the consequences of such a tragedy, considering that they were forced to retract constitutional revisions addressing Karakalpakstan's status, which sparked last year's riots. Given the recent trials of the 2022 protesters, as well as the approaching amendments to the Uzbek constitution, it would appear that despite expectations of rapprochement between the two governments, now would appear to be a politically delicate moment to relinquish water resources to the Afghans. Turkmenistan's worries are similar to those of its northern neighbor. As a nation that gets the vast majority of its water from the Amadaria, Ashgabat cannot afford to give ground to the Afghans in terms of water sharing in the basin. This shortage also does not appear to be transient. According to government reports this year, the Karakum Canal, Turkmenistan's major supply of water, is experiencing severe water shortages. To Turkmenistan, the Kosh-Tepe Canal's potential threat is not a problem but a disaster. There are potential solutions to this problem that Turkmenistan might pursue, such as a proposed Caspian Sea desalination facility, but they're not without expense. Aside from the potential environmental damage, such a facility would need outside expertise and new infrastructure, and would take at least 5 years to construct, given the speed with which the Kosh-Tepe Canal is being constructed. Incentives to cooperation. Regardless of the national resistance that downstream countries may have to the canal, there are clear advantages to working with the Taliban on this topic. Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan have been attempting for decades to persuade Kabul to collaborate on the projected TAPI, or Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India pipeline. With the partners having already invested large amounts of money in the project, the Taliban's recent statement that development will proceed might eventually see some of these investments repaid. All of this comes as India, one of the pipeline's key benefactors, expresses interest in diversifying its hydrocarbon supplies. As a result, a water conflict might substantially threaten this project at a time when the region has a high chance of being exposed to new natural gas markets. As a result, collaboration on Kosh-Tepe is not always a zero-sum game. The region's governments have also been eager to preserve relatively strong connections with the Taliban on counterterrorism matters. Aside from the possibility that water disputes could sour these counterterrorism negotiations, there is a strong case to be made that the Kosh-Tepe Canal will have a direct influence on these efforts. Northern Afghanistan, where the canal is being built, has long been a battleground for the Taliban, both historically and currently. In recent months, the Islamic State Khorasan Province, or ISKP, has carried out multiple attacks in Balkh Province, including the killing of the governor. The Kosh-Tepe Canal did not emerge from thin air. These realities influence its design. The increased farmland created by the canal might give fresh territories for Taliban-allied Pashtun tribesmen to occupy, thus solidifying the Taliban's dominance in the region. Any attempt by Central Asian countries to obstruct the canal's development may cause greater instability in the part of Afghanistan closest to their borders. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating trip as we've successfully looked at Afghanistan's canal project. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more fascinating insights into the world of Mega China projects.